Here we go. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you again for coming out to the 2021 series of How Do We Go Forward, How Do We Go Back? My name is Dr. Fen Kennedy. My pronouns are they, them, and I am speaking to you from the stolen land of the Creek Nation, now known as Tuscaloosa, Alabama. How do we go forward? How do we go back? Begun as a way for us to think about returning to dance and academia in the fall of 2020. This summer offers us a chance not only to reflect on the last year, but to think about how we can change our communities as we move into another academic year. Every week, I invite two guests to have a conversation with each other about one element of this broader topic. We're going to start off with 30 minutes of that conversation, and then I'm going to invite people for the second 30 minutes to discuss, to share their own questions, and just to generally talk to each other and open up into a wider discussion. This week, the topic is training for dance, and I am so thrilled that our guests this week are Ruby Rambo and Sydney Schiff. As well as being this series' arguably most devoted fan, Sydney Schiff is a contemporary dancer, you know it, choreographer, educator, and scholar. Schiff received her bachelor's in the history of science and a certificate in the program in dance from Princeton University, was a New York City-based freelance dancer, choreographer, and artistic director of Sydney Schiff Dance Project for 6 years, and afterwards received an MFA in dance from the University of Michigan. While in graduate school, she researched Brazilian zouk dancing as a fellow in the Center for World Performance Studies, and upon graduating, traveled the world for a year to teach, study, perform, and continue her preliminary ethnographic research on the dance in preparation for future scholarship. In 2019, she settled in Chicago while continuing to travel extensively. She currently directs a contemporary dance team in Chicago as part of Evolucion Latina Dance Company, teaches daily online classes for social dancers as part of a program she started in March 2020, and has recently returned to traveling and teaching in person. Ruby Rambo is a Chicago-based NASM, ACE, and ASCM certified personal trainer and group exercise instructor, and a nationally certified massage therapist. She has worked with a variety of populations for the last 6 years in strength, conditioning, behavioral modification, and developing personalized movement practices. She continues to delve into human biomechanics and the role of breath in athleticism and body mechanics. She is currently earning a certification in steel mace vinyasa with Flo Shallow of Bellingham, Washington. Prior to her career in personal training, Ruby taught blues, Lindy Hop, and fusion dance nationally and in Europe for 16 years, and competed and judged in blues and fusion. Her movement study history includes a long list of solo dance practices, vintage and modern partner dances, martial arts, self-defense skills, and circus arts. As a member of the social dance community, she has managed recurring social events in including the Chicago Underground Blues Experience, San Francisco's Friday Night Blues, and Chicago's Bluetopia, as well as a variety of community practices and instructor retreats. She currently works with clients remotely throughout the US and in person at Brooklyn Boulders, a rock climbing gym in Chicago. Welcome to you both. How are you doing?
Fantastic.
Really good. It's a beautiful day in Chicago today.
It is.
Since you're both trainers, I think I'll start with asking, what are you working on?
I'll jump in. When you say, what am I working on, do you mean in my own practice or with my clients? Okay, cool. I would say that the work I'm doing with steel mace vinyasa is a new area of learning, and so I'm learning to be a student again. When I signed up for that program, I didn't realize that I was also going to be getting some coaching of my own. So all of the things that I spend time asking clients to do, like track their workouts or engage in, focused learning, and then repeated daily or weekly practices, I'm also having to be accountable to somebody for that. So I'm getting the coaching while working on the coaching. So it's a nice meta place to be in as somebody who's been doing this by themselves for a long time.
I love that you just said that, because I feel like this pandemic has been a time for me to incubate. And I have been taking every movement apart. I too found a coach and a sort of school that's run. So Evolucion Latina has bachata teams. I also direct the contemporary team. However, I've been a student this whole time. So I've been learning everything about how to teach and really this has been kind of a master's education in understanding untrained bodies. And for me, having trained in dance since I was 2 years old, there are so many skills I take for granted. And I have so many students right now who have never danced or have social danced but never taken a ballet class. How do I get someone who's never set foot in a ballet class to do ballet? And I don't know how to do that, except I have a mentor. I have people around me who are developing techniques not and pedagogies. And now I'm able to create contemporary choreographies, teach it to these students, and have them do it right away. And it's fascinating, it's exciting, it's inspiring. And for me, the process has been exhausting emotionally, physically, ego completely smashed out the window. To be a beginner again in every single way possible has both given me the power to dance again in a way that I didn't think I could. So I came out of this pandemic strong. I've never been this strong because I am focused on both conditioning and also executing. And that has freed me as an artist in every way. And I'm now able to both inspire people with performances that I didn't think I was capable of at 32 years old, and also teach people how to do what I do, which is really blowing my mind. And I feel so privileged to have this opportunity every time I walk into a dance studio. So I feel like I've been training myself uh, this whole time, while I've also been teaching daily online classes to help train and maintain and inspire people around the world. So it's been really cool to grow as a teacher through that experience, and also through the in-person experience that I'm privileged to have. So yeah.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, I've also been this experience forced me into remote training, which was something that I thought was kind of a long ways off, like, oh, maybe I'll do that someday. And, um, I think people, after a couple of months of being locked into their houses, went, I've always said I wanted to train with you if I lived in the same city as you, and I don't, but it seems like everyone's doing stuff remotely. Do you do remote training? And I went, okay, yeah, let's figure out how to do this. So this year has been not just an ongoing education with training people, but also how to do it remotely, how to bring accountability tools to a wide variety of people, and also a wonderful way to connect with folks I know from the dance world, but bringing them into a more like complete embodiment of like, this is what it means to inhabit your body and use it in an athletic context, and then take it back into whatever you want: dance, working out, taking care of your kids and your family.
I love that. I think it's so important. I think especially for young people who, I mean, everyone, we all suffer, from society telling us what we should or shouldn't look like, right? And I think for me, one of the biggest things I've discovered for myself through the pandemic, and something that's made me really confident, is that when I am strong, I feel beautiful and I feel powerful. And I think that that is something that I now walk into a room and I actually don't really care what anybody thinks. I feel really good. And I like to, that's why I've been including more workouts into my daily classes online. And so we do a 25-minute workout before we learn Zouk footwork, styling, head movement, things for social dancing. I train bodies. So my students, when I have the, now I can dance with some of them when I see them in person as I travel, and I can feel them. They have a strong core. They're balanced. They're yes, Vanessa. They have this connection to the floor, their frame, because all the push-ups we do, and it really changes everything about the way we connect. And if that's the goal, my way of connecting is to be mobile and to be strong. And I love that I've been working so hard to like find out, like, how do I take that message, turn it into a class, and turn it into a way for other people to actually change in that way. And then, of course, from my perspective as an artist and a professional, this has been keeping me employed single-handedly this entire pandemic. And I feel so much gratitude to everyone who's trusted me in this process, and to all the people who've been on that journey. I see them grow for a year. I mean, it's very humbling. So yeah.
I'm curious, Sydney, what does training remotely look like for you in terms of what your offerings are and how you interact with your students in terms of like one-on-one, group, pre-recorded stuff?
So I do a daily class online on Zoom,
Cool.
and I do it live. Of course, I don't do it live every single day. Sometimes I put up a previous class. Like today, I didn't have live students. I loved this class I did last week on the similar theme, contemporary techniques for Zouk dancing. So it was a gram-based class. How do we take the gram contraction and spiral and apply it to Brazilian Zouk head movement? It's actually one of the best techniques that I've discovered in myself as I've rekindled my connection to my own roots in contemporary dance and modern dance traditions. So I took that class and I had a recording so I could share it again with my students. So I have students who take the class either live or as a recording. It's available for 24 hours. Some classes, people are totally great to follow along. And when I have an exercise that is improvisational or practice, I turn off my camera. So the recording doesn't have me dancing. So they stop watching me. They get the idea that it's not about let's copy, but let's process and freeze them to dance and move how they need to discover whatever, and whatever task or prompt I've given them to explore. So that's how I both choreograph my in-person classes, as well as keep in mind the recording, which I send out as a speaker view and as gallery, so they can watch the group, and they can also choose to just take it with me, with my camera then turns off. So that when people do arrive in person, it's really helpful because I can adapt my class to what I see on the screen. So if I see people not understanding what I'm saying, I adapt what I'm saying or doing to see if I can find a way to get their bodies to move differently. So that's amazing feedback for me as a teacher, which is why I love having the students live. But I'm also always aware that I have students who are on monthly unlimited passes to my classes. So I have someone every day who's taking my class. I can't forget they're in the room, and I don't want them just to feel like they're left out. I want them to know that they were in the room too.
Super cool. I love that model. I've been thinking about adopting something like that. That sounds really cool.
What does your model look like right now, Ruby?
It's pretty one-on-one based. So I meet with people one-on-one, usually once a week, some folks 2 or 3 times a week. And it's sort of like their weekly appointment with me. They get a set of documents, that's their training plan. And the training plan is very short in the beginning. It's a warm-up and a set of breathing exercises. And then we build their training plan over time. Most people go through a very similar set of steps, and then after about the first month, things can diverge in terms of different paths that I take people, depending on injuries, lifestyle choices, and just general goals. And my aim is to generally improve strength and conditioning, improve breathing function, and for some people that could be adopted into a dance practice. For others, I've had people say, I just want to learn how to do kettlebell swings, or hey, I want to lose 10 pounds. And so it's a good model, but it's a model that's evolving, and that's the next couple of months for me is going to look like, how do I evolve that model to distribute more information to more people with less kind of one-on-one hand holding, while still being a resource it was available to everybody.
Are you interested, Ruby, are you interested in developing a model for hybrid classes?
Yeah.
Because especially as we're heading into summer, I think a lot of this could be, you could have a group class outside with additional students, again, around the world from wherever they are, whatever city they're in. Have you thought about that? Or
yeah, it's nice. We've been able to bring back a couple group classes at the gym that I work at, and I have a couple spaces that I'm able to work out of where I can, bring a couple bodies, or like an outdoor class could actually be a lot of fun as long as it's not too windy. The thing that I noticed last year, we the climbing gym I work at started up a remote only training program because the gym was totally closed. And so a few of us taught remote classes. And as like March and April wore on, pretty good. May was all right. And then June and July, attendance just tanked. People were sick of being inside. They wanted to be outdoors. They didn't want to be on Zoom anymore. And things kind of like wore down into the summer. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how people, what the demand is for learning, and then what the tolerance is for video learning through the summer. Definitely think there's going to be some adaptation for the season.
Sydney, I know that you've gone back to kind of in-person teaching, and I know Ruby are thinking about it. What kinds of training do you think people need? Like if we've been knowing that a lot of people have been in this kind of sat on their butts environment.
So the first workshop I taught at a Congress was, what was it? Styling for leads and follows. And I taught a little warm up, and then I taught a couple basics, which are the same for leads and follows. And then I offered some styling opportunities, and I didn't show them, and I changed up the music, and I had everybody go across the floor, make a little combo out of it, make a little improv moment, pose at the end. And I had everybody, it was basically a dance class, a sort of more traditional jazz style dance class. But I had men and women and non-binary students, leads and follows, people who identified in every way coming into the class. And for me, it was important that I have students not associate a role with being able to style. I want to be Sydney as a follow, which is my primary role. I know the reason it's a primary role for me is because I feel like I know the most about it. As a lead, I dance, but the reason I struggled for a long time with enjoying leading was because I felt like I stopped dancing and I cut off my voice in order to move a body. And when I realized that I didn't want to do that anymore, that it, especially in Brazilian Zouk, where it's all about the connection and the conversation and the dialogue, and the leads are usually taught to take care of the follow, which I think is a good idea. We should always do that. But not so much how to style or how to express themselves through the movement. And you don't have to do extra added arms. These are all of the hand movement, the arm styling. That's just one version of styling. Another one is how you do a body roll, how you shift your weight, how you walk, how you take someone in your arms. All of these are styling. They're all related to the music, all related to your dance or lived experiences. And so when you allow someone to explore that by themselves and then say, okay, now let's try to dance together. For me, that is so exciting and fulfilling. And that's also why right now, I think it's so important for people to continue solo practice, because sometimes if you haven't moved, moving with someone in your arms is like a lot, let alone moving by yourself. So let's start by moving by ourselves, and then let's learn some simple movements and not overtrain them. So I'm now starting to teach intro classes again, and I'm picking movements that are easy to do in multiple directions, play with music, really simple, so you don't stress about proper technique. And instead we can start to focus on connection and smiling and being joyful and happy. And hey, Kevin. I think that starting to model that behavior and value as an artist at an event, for example, I feel joy dancing with a beginner student. And if I can feel joy, that inspires them to feel joy and confident dancing with people. So as we come back, I think removing and freeing ourselves from judgment. And I think that as an artist and a professional, people look up to me. I have a responsibility to model the behavior that I want to see on the dance floor in my classes and also in my social dancing.
That's cool. I was thinking about whether or not dancers would really buckle down and work on their solo dancing this year and come back to group dances with a different way of being in their bodies. And, I will admit that for myself, my dance practice has taken a back seat to my other movement study. And I wouldn't say that I'll enter the dance floor with like a new sense of like amazing styling, but I really do like this idea that for folks who attended the Congress where you taught, that may be like the one that they attend for a couple months. They may not be going to as many consistently as they previously were. So giving them something that's like, here's something that you can take away back to your solo practice at home that you might chew on for the next couple months, and then bring something new and fresh to the next Congress that could be 2 or 3 months down the road. So I think that's it's really forward thinking.
Or they can take my daily classes online, sydneyshiftdanceproject.com. I'm available every single day. That's the other reason. It's an advertisement for my own business, which, I believe in. So.
Ruby, what about you? What do you want to hit as people start coming back into the world?
Oh man, I just want everyone to breathe right. You know how it is, like you discover something new, and that's like the hammer that you hit everything with. And admittedly, breath is my hammer right now, but it is a powerful tool. And there's no one right way to breathe, but there are some less optimal ways to breathe. And it is changing people, just changing the biomechanics of our breathing, understanding the biochemistry of breathing, understanding how to modify your own breathing for either your personality type. Are you a high anxiety person, or are you a laid back and chill? Are you kind of a sleepy person who needs to get their energy up? Like there's no breathing answer for everybody. And when I think about things that I did and ways that I performed and ways that I used my body previously in classes and in competition, there's so much work to be done in terms of breath and movement and dance. And just learning how to shut my mouth while I dance and breathe through my nose was like a super challenge. And it like pushed me outside my comfort zone majorly, and I had to dial it down and not dance so hard until I could build up that power and ability to breathe through my nose. So that's like level 1, and then there are many layers below that.
I never thought of that. That's so cool.
Yeah, that'll probably be like a thing if I offer it at workshops. Yeah, we're gonna breathe.
I love it. Zookers will eat that up for sure.
Awesome. And it's not like hippy dippy, and it's not just like yoga breathe deep, and it's not breathe through everything. It's like really understand the
I have a gig for you. Sorry, never mind. Keep going.
No, give it to me.
No, I can't promise it to you, but I just got offered a gig. I'm going to be somewhere else, but this workshop would be perfect. I'll talk to you after.
Awesome. Cool. Yep. I'm thinking about what dance events are going to look like going forward, and dance workshops and movement workshops. And I'm sort of curious what you're thinking of in terms of like things that you think might come out that are new, and things that might go away, that either like we would be sad to lose or that should go away?
So having been to I can't even keep track anymore. I've been to two congresses and a weekender. And both of them were well, one was in Florida, the other one was in Houston, and then the third one was in Arizona. So these are places where the locals are used to not wearing masks, and a lot of them are used to social dancing, and some of them, especially in the salsa bachata scene, didn't stop. The zookers were a little more conservative the whole time, but I think that walking into that space where people are suddenly really comfortable. I mean, for me, coming from Chicago, where if you walk down the street with no mask on, people give you dirty looks. Like even now, people still, I'm like, yeah, I can breathe, and
There's
I'm like,
still
I
people
feel
on the
guilty.
street with masks
I
on
know.
here.
You're the only one on the block, and they'll like give you a dirty look and like social distance. I'm talking everywhere. So I got to the hotel where the Congress was in. So when I got to Florida, I only performed. I teched without a mask. I performed without a mask. I didn't social dance. I like went in on the last day, and literally I had an alarm to schedule my second vaccine. It went off. I scheduled it and I left the room. I was like, I don't want to risk this. And so I was really kind of terrified. But kind of had my first, okay, people, it was like half mask, half not. Houston, no one was wearing masks. I mean, a few, but I got to the hotel. It said masks were optional for fully vaccinated guests. And I was like, I put my mask on, then I took it off. And then I put it on, and then I took it off. And then I had it on. And then I was like, I think it's okay. And so for the first time, I like breathed and I walked around a space without a mask on, and I felt the guilt fall away. And then I felt bad about that. And then I went to the social, I walked in the Zouk room, and I'm dancing with people. And I was like, wow, I thought I was going to feel all this trauma from touch. I thought this was going to freak me out. People like to dance close in Zouk. And I was like, oh, maybe I've forgotten Lamba. I definitely haven't done that. It's fast. Everything came back right away. I mean, the connection, there were so many little things that I trained so hard that I have to get back. But there were also so many things that were just there. I was like, wow, okay. I mean, if I hadn't conditioned my body, they wouldn't have been as available. So because I was strong, mobile, and did a lot of improvisation every single day this whole time, I was able, I always say, try everything so you can do anything. So when I asked my body to do something it hadn't done in over a year, I was able to do it because it was prepared to do it, even though I hadn't physically done it. So that surprised me. And my endurance was fine. I was, we're used to dancing 25 hours at a weekend, and I had no problem because I was in good shape. So again, this strength is like my new power. It's my new like superpower. I love it. And Arizona, yeah, like nobody. I mean, occasional people. And Chicago.
I'm going to break in for a second because we're at 7, and I also want to get Ruby's answer to this question. So maybe as folks start turning on their cameras and unmuting and preparing those questions, if you want to wrap up your thoughts in one sentence, and then Ruby, if you could briefly like answer your own question, and then we'll turn it to questions from guests. If you have a question, hold on to it, and then I'll start taking once we wrap up with Ruby. All right.
I guess the wrap up would be, I saw my company with no masks for the first time in over a year, like a week ago, and it was amazing. That's it, the end. It was incredible.
Cool. I will say that I know that a lot of people suffered from the dancer plague at the end of long weekends, and I think there are a lot of things that were really hard on people's bodies, with staying up late and dancing all weekend and not getting rest and not getting recovery. And for me, not getting sick for a whole year and a half was fantastic. I got a sore throat for 2 days when I went out of state, knocked it out, and was like, that was it. So I think for myself, even though I'm fully vaccinated, I'm still in a mask at the gym, and I may continue masking at dance events. And I've never been a germ free, like afraid of germs. I've always been like, yeah, whatever germs. But just the loss of function and ability after a long weekend of dance and then getting sick, it's like it's not worth it. And I can socialize with friends, but the up close breathing people's air that we have been doing for years and years, like I think I would like to just not get sick after dance events. So I may keep masking.
You'll be surprised. I started dancing with people with no mask and more aware than ever of, especially as a shorter person than many of the people that I dance with, their exhale from their nose goes right into my face. And I was just like, whoa, I never thought of that before.
Yeah.
Never thought of that before.
Yeah.
I'm also going to be like this, in part because I want my non-vaccinated friends to be able to dance with me too. All right, friends, thank Ruby and Sydney so much for talking to us today. I'm now going to invite everybody, if you want to turn your cameras on, please do. And then if you have a question, drop your name in the chat. And then I will just run through the names in order. And when I get to your name, you can either unmute and speak it to the masses, or you can type, and we'll wait for you. But who would like to ask a question? I will take a minute to wait for names. All right, Rebecca, jumping in, off you go.
Thanks. I guess my question is, do you have recommendations for people transitioning back to the physical demands of dancing after time off or just time doing dance differently? Like, how do we get back into it without getting injured?
You know, I would say start putting some, if you haven't been putting a solo dance into your practice, I would say start that now, which I'm sure Sydney can get totally on board with. And otherwise, I would love to see dance events running, you know, afternoon, like tea dances on a Sunday type of thing, for people to go dance for a couple hours and then you know, go on with your day, instead of these like hardcore dance marathons that we think of as the ideal dance event.
I love that, the afternoon tea dance. That's really wonderful. I also loved what you said before about being healthy. I think a lot of professionals, myself included, really enjoyed this opportunity to get 8 hours of sleep a night, eat healthy and well, have control over my environment. I mean, I don't want to stay up. I mean, sometimes I do want to stay up and dance with everyone, but I want to prioritize my health in a way I didn't before. But to answer your question, Rebecca, SydneyShiftDanceProject.com, daily classes, sign up. That's literally the answer. And you're one of my students, so you know that. Daily conditioning for dancers, and move and don't lose that. That's a great way of getting back into dancing, and also understanding again who you are. If you know your body, then you bring your full self to a dance in both physical and also psychological ways. And I think that we're going to be dealing with a lot. So the stronger we are going in to these spaces, the more equipped we are to, you know, leave with joy.
I'll tag on also, not to take any classes away from SydneyShiftDanceProject.com, but over the pandemic, a lot of very big dance companies started pushing out their dancers. Bye, Samantha. Putting out videos of the dancers teaching beginner and open level and intermediate classes. So, and Sydney mentioned Graham Technique. The Graham Company has a wealth of classes, and I'm particularly right now enjoying Lloyd Knight's open level class, because it's in his living room. It's really chilled out. The music is good. And you can, like, that's another way of just like working yourself into something in terms of solo practice.
It's funny you should say that, because that was one of the first classes I took online, was Lloyd Knight's on Instagram. It was, I came alive that day. It was wonderful.
Yeah. It's on YouTube, and I like the lilting guitar and the breathing.
Ooh, please put links in the show notes.
Yeah, I'll stick the link in the Facebook group. We can all take some Graham together.
Yes.
Take a selfie if you're doing it. Selfie of your Graham class. All right, friends, did anyone else want to drop a name in their chat to ask a question?
If there aren't any pending questions, I'll ask a question when there's an opening, Fen.
Yeah, and also I've got some questions that I saved up for you, but Ruby, why don't you go ahead, because you've worked very hard today.
Cool. I guess I would just like to ask the folks who are listening and watching what you feel excited about in the next couple months as we get into summer in terms of movement and your own bodies, like what you're looking for or what your ask is from dance or from movement. I see thinking faces, so that's good.
I can jump in. Can you hear me? Yeah. I am looking forward to doing a whole bunch of new modalities, not just partner dancing. I just started pole dancing classes and I'm learning how to roller skate, which is terrifying. And I'm very prone to injury with that one. So just kind of like learning like new ways to interact with things on my own in my own body, and how that'll be like cross-functional to my partner dancing.
We have one in the chat, adding things like jumping and across the floor movements that have been limited for so long, dancing in a space with others and relating to them.
Nice.
I've started playing with kettlebells, which I really enjoy. I find that the dynamic movement of taking something heavy and figuring out the right timing so that I can move a heavy thing in ways that are gentle with my body reminds me of all those martial arts movies that I've seen and never understood, where they talk about the tool training you how to use it right, because when you mess it up, you hurt yourself. Like kettlebells. Okay, I get it. Also wrist guards, padded wrist guards.
Ted, you've just described exactly how I feel about context improvisation. Take the heavy thing.
Nice, nice.
I was going to throw the cat among the pigeons a little bit, but it's all right because I prepped Ruby and Sydney for this. But this idea of solo dance training, it really often comes with cultural norms and ideals about this is what your body should look like. And it comes with ideals about these kinds of dance are like high art and these kinds of dance are low art. And social dance tends to fall on the low art side of the thing. So like, how do we, if we're asking people to bring solo dance into their practice, how do we get them to be aware and perhaps discriminatory about some of the baggage that those forms might bring with them?
I feel like in my particular practice and with the people that I work with, that that idealization of the body it may exist out there, but it is not in our bubble. And it's because my clients and I are always looking at what is the best movement for you in your body? What is the best way to stack your bones? What is the best way to engage your muscles? And, you know, I've got folks of all body types who will say, would it just be easier if I took my shirt off so you can see what my shoulder blades are doing? And I'm like, yeah, cool. Like, I didn't want to push you to get naked or take your clothes off, but you can show me everything. And I can see how you're moving your body. And people seem to be really comfortable with that, which makes me really happy. And you know, a lot of stuff that I'm doing with people is just really technical. It's just really about like how to move best for yourself. It's not about aesthetics. It's not about pretty. But when we do get into aesthetics, like I've challenged people like, okay, I've been doing Turkish get-ups for a while. I'd like you to dance your get-up this week. And it's turned into a really fun creative project, absent any like sense of judgment about what that's supposed to look like. So I feel lucky that it feels like a non-issue.
So I I'm going to bring this a little bit to academia. And I've been training as a dancer, which is so exciting, and a teacher and a choreographer. But also, I happen to hit on what could either be a fantastic book or eventually my dissertation. It would be a great title, Bachata and Ballet. So my coach and the director of this company, Jose Serrano, is a Balanchine and Graham trained professional ballet dancer who turned to the Latin world and has a huge role in very much transforming it. Evolución Latina, Latin evolution. So it's been fascinating to see him teaching balancing technique and styling, Graham technique to bodies that are diverse, that are not controlled. Anyone can walk into the room. There are no auditions. Everyone starts at level 1, myself included. And you have mostly people from Hispanic communities who may not have the means to, or had the opportunity to attend a ballet school from the time that they were 2 years old, and they might be 26 years old, and there's someone says, I'm going to teach you how to do a double tour. All you have to do is show up to class. I mean, it blows my mind, and I didn't understand how he could do that, which is why I've been training with him and with the company to understand from the perspective of a student, how do you ask a body that didn't go through that lifetime of training do all those things? So there's a privilege in me being able to walk into the room as a trained dancer and to be able to be part of sharing that with people and to be an advocate and to be able to every so often remind like my co-directors, like, hey guys, you know, just so you know, what you're getting in this room is years of private coaching from the best teachers, master teachers, to your coach, to you, and to not that they take it for granted, but they don't have a context for understanding how special this is. And I trained in ballet, but I never got to the level that I wanted because everyone said, oh, your legs are too short and you don't have enough turnout, your feet aren't good enough. And for me, not being accepted in that world broke my heart. And I was very privileged to have the opportunity to train with the Dance Theater of Harlem for 2 years in DC. I was accepted there because of my passion and my work ethic. And it didn't matter that I didn't have the perfect body, that I had big thighs. And I mean, big for a 90-pound-year-old, a little 16-year-old dancer, right? But that, that not fitting in the mold, the Balanchine, long legs, very light skin, all of that not fitting there. You don't have to fit that to be a part of Evolucion. You don't have to do that to look like a prima ballerina. And you can be beautiful, powerful, and knock the socks off of 2,000 people in an audience. And that's what I am a part of, which is like, gives me goosebumps to say, I love that. That's my job right now.
That's amazing. I'm seeing Kevin with a question, and then Vanessa, was that a wavy hand yes, or a wavy hand I have a question, or a wavy hand goodbye? You have a question? No, it's a yes. Okay, cool. Then I will not put you on the stack. Let's go to Kevin.
Okay, so the question I have, it's sort of like 2 interrelated questions. So one, you sort of alluded to like a hierarchy of dances, or maybe like to phrase it better, that one dance thinks that they're better than the other. And I think we see a lot of that. And I'm sort of coming from like a bit of a fusion perspective when I say this, but I also dance a lot of dances in their purity. So for example, I don't dance bachata, but I know that, like, for example, Zouk dancers will kind of shit on bachata dancers because they see like crappy technique on YouTube videos or demos somewhere. You're like, oh my God, what are you doing? What are you trying to give that person whiplash? Or stuff like that. Or maybe Lindy Hoppers who are be like, yeah, blues dancers are just like people who have no cardio. Or I can just like go on and like give examples of like dancers from one dance scene who I might be a part of, might not, shit on other dancers. It's like, oh, it's like those West Coast swing dancers, they don't have any cardio either compared to us Lindy hoppers or West Coast swing dancers being like, oh yeah, those guys, like, they're just like flailing their arms everywhere. It's gross.
Mind you, Kevin, you're being recorded for public.
Awesome. Don't worry. It's fine. I might be shitting on myself sometimes, but so the one question is, it's like, maybe, do you feel like there is a hierarchy in there in terms of like techniques from certain dances? Like, for example, the people who do tango, they'll kind of shit on kizomba dancers because, well, they kind of have shitty technique compared to them, and they haven't trained as long in that technique as well, right?
Oh, stop. Can I weigh in on this? I don't think you've quite asked your question though. I'm waiting, but I'm like at the gate like this.
Yeah. So in terms of this, like, what do you think about this? Like, in terms of like having like a hierarchy, because I believe that everyone thinks that their dance is better, but that's not necessarily true. And I think there are some aspects of certain dances that have better technique in terms of like being able to extract those things and use them in like a fusion context. So if you're going to like choose like your top three, which ones would you pick and why? Maybe that's where I'm leading with this question, all of the antagonism aside.
Can I address
certainly
this?
antagonized you because I saw you flailing everywhere. You're like, ah!
Yeah. No, okay. I'd like to hop in. Wish I had opinions. That is right. So I went to Brazil for 3 months and I went to study Zouk, and I ended up studying every single ballroom dance, including Zouk. And in fact, I studied so much more. Like, I went to the beach, I cooked with people, I, took the train, I attended their equivalent of their sort of their fusion dance, contemporary ballroom, danse du salon contemporanea. So in certain places, a social dancer learns lots of dances. They don't learn just one dance. And especially in diaspora, we have people who learn one dance. So if you only learn bachata, you're like, oh, bachata's the best. But in Brazil, when you go to a ballroom dance studio, you get a like subscription or like a membership, and then you just take all the classes. So you don't just go in for the Zouk. You go and take 4 classes in a row in an evening, and that's what you do when you go to the dance school. And then socials, you have lots of dances and people change. So I think that, personally, I think people just like to feel special and they like to argue. But if you take a step back, you have to be careful. When you say, I don't like a dance, are you saying I don't like the dancers or the dance itself? Because something like salsa, bachata, kizomba, well, kizomba's got an interesting history, so I'm going to leave that off the table. But let's say just salsa and bachata. They have a very long history. They come from countries, they have cultural histories that are very deep. And so if you say, I don't like bachata, you're saying, I don't like something that came out of the Dominican Republic. No, maybe I don't really enjoy dancing with certain bachata dancers who have learned or trained in certain places. And also, question, can you find a way to enjoy dancing with them without talking them down? Okay, now I'll wrap it up. I have a lot of thoughts. I could talk for an hour on this. So the one sentence response is, the teachers need to be more responsible, because it's never the kids. You got to look at the parents. And if the kids are dancing in ways that are painful, the teachers are either not inspiring them to come to classes, or they're not teaching correctly in classes.
I want to jump in because this is a soapbox for me too. And it comes back to this idea of technique. And one exercise that I often do with my students is I ask a volunteer to stand up and to stand with the best posture that they have. And maybe you can join me. Stand up and stand with the best posture that you have. And I'm going to stay sat down. But show me your best posture. Now, depending on the audience, some people will turn out their feet and put them in first and stand, but usually people stand with their shoulders over their hips, over their heels. They're trying to elongate their spine. And now I say, now stand in the best posture you've got for a tap class. And see, everyone's posture shifts. So what we're looking at here is that there isn't one technique. Technique is something that, as Sydney said, comes out of long, rich histories of culture. Often it's socially developed. Like the technique you use to like swing a kettlebell and the technique you use to like swing your roommate should be two very different techniques, which doesn't mean one is better or worse than the other. So when I talk about there's a perceived hierarchy of technique, it comes from this idea that ballet gets set over almost everything else, but that's kind of a false ideological dichotomy because people don't know how to read technique when technique looks different to the techniques they know and value. Here is my soapbox, I'm stepping off it, but would Ruby like one? Ruby would like one, and then we have a question from Vanessa. So Ruby, the soapbox is yours.
Yeah. So, you know, I've been less concerned with dance styles this year, but extremely concerned with biomechanics. And just as there's shit talking in the dance world, oh man, movement culture, CrossFit, power lifters, Olympic lifters, rock climbers who walk into the gym with their rock climbing shoes on. Like there's so much judgment. And there's also this inherent idea that every dance teacher has brought to every dance class I've ever taken, which is not only is this the way to do this dance, but this is biomechanically the best way to move your body, right? As a blues dancer, you should always be in an athletic position. As a Lindy Hopper, you should always be down in your knees. As a Balboa dancer, you should always be bouncing through your arches. As a ballet dancer, you should always have a lifted carriage and glue your belly button to your spine. And every single one of these practices creates a problem and a dysfunction. And so as somebody who's training people coming from all these different practices, I'm looking at like, how do I organize the hierarchy of like things that I understand about biomechanics, what it is this person needs to do, and then biological diversity, right? This different bone structures and shapes and the way that we use our bodies. So it's a constant debate. And at the end of the day, even the people who do workouts that drive me crazy that I feel judgmental about, I just have to be like, God damn, at least they're here working out in the gym. At least they're here.
And with that comparatively generous response, I'm going to go and take Vanessa's question now because we are getting close to time. Vanessa, what did you want to ask?
Hi, yes. Thank you, all of you, Fen, for hosting, Ruby and Sydney for contributing. It's been an amazing discussion to listen into. So my question has to do with regulation. That's one of the things that's come to mind with, especially in the past year, like regulation of the self-control, controlling balance, posture, all of these my own biomechanics versus regulation of the other, whether that is controlling the partner or other people in the room, and regulation of the environment. Like, who do we allow or not allow? Do we allow only vaccinated people or non-vaccinated people? Does everyone need a mask or not? So my question is, as we move forward as dancers, teachers, and organizers, what are some of your short-term priorities? So for like the rest of the year, and perhaps like longer term, if you have visions, how do you see these priorities shifting when it comes to regulation of the self, regulation of other human bodies, and regulation of the spaces where we all come together? Thank you.
I have thoughts on this. And I love the way that you phrased the question, Vanessa, because I recently was able to witness a scenario in which some folks gathered together after having been separated, throughout the pandemic, and the impact on the group of those folks gathering together and suddenly being in constant contact for many days in a row. I think that historically, our dance community has been wanting in training folks self-regulation strategies, and we have created some codependent practices, and many people come into the dance community because they need co-regulation, and they may not have it with partnerships at home or with family units that are functional, and the dance community and culture becomes the area where they experience co-regulation, because we're a social animal. We do regulate with other bodies, and I think that there's real value in learning skills that enable people to regulate in the face of being in a group that's maybe doing a thing you're not into, that doesn't work for your energy level or wherever you're at. I had a conversation with one of my mentors about this after we had a little breakdown in the group, and absent of any of my observations, she said, dancers and massage therapists and people who do a lot of like body work come together in these group events, and they're really, really crappy about how they self-regulate and create really dysfunctional interactions. And we all have to take a moment to step back and like regulate our own bubble, our own breath, our own body space, and think about how we interact with each other. And I think it requires ongoing dialogue and conversation. And I kind of hope that this experience that we've all had self-regulating with our very tiny bubbles might actually bring some of that back into our communities. But I'm glad you asked it, because it's a conversation that really needs to happen.
I think adding COVID precautions and safety to our consent dialogue is really important. Because when you walk into a room unmasked and the people are unmasked around you, even if everyone's vaccinated, you can still pick it up. And if you have unvaccinated people at home, then you are taking a risk upon yourself. Do you mask at home? Do you protect the people who live with you? Are you going to put them at risk because of the decisions that you're making? I think that the other issue is that if you walk into a social dance space and you wear a mask, you're protecting others, but not yourself. So the only way to get protected is either if people are vaccinated or double vaccinated and a mask over their nose. So if you walk into that space, you're agreeing to putting yourself at risk. And I think that it makes it difficult because you have people who wear a mask, and that's a social responsibility action more and a symbol more than it is right now. If you're vaccinated, that is better protection than a mask. So definitely, if you're unvaccinated and you walk into a social dance and you're wearing a mask, the best protection you have is that everyone else is vaccinated. And I think that that's a new issue when we have vaccine only. Suddenly you have to ask people to explain to you why they won't get vaccinated or can't. And someone may have some sort of underlying condition that makes it impossible or dangerous for them to be vaccinated. Are they allowed to rely on herd immunity? Are they allowed to depend on the community, or are they no longer allowed to be at our events? And I think that these conversations are getting really real, especially right now. I'm starting up an event in oh my gosh, next week. And that's a question. We want it vaccine only, but what if someone, if we don't want them to talk to us about their medical history, does it matter if they're I think that everyone should get vaccinated. I believe in science. I don't know who's in the room, but I have a feeling we're probably on the same page here. I'll just make an assumption. So if you are anti-vaccination, do we make some sort of judgment on you and prevent you from being in our space? And these are real, and I don't have answers for them. But they're they've come up as an event organizer, more so than as an attendee. Because as an attendee, I've decided if I go to an event where people aren't wearing masks and I am not wearing a mask, I'm probably gonna be fine if I pick it up, but my social responsibility is as effective as the vaccine.
We're just seeming to dive into like a huge wormhole of topics, and we are also at time. So I want to wrap up in a few different ways. The first is to tell you what's coming next week, because in terms of wormhole topics, racism in dance communities is a huge one. But we have a fantastic duo. We have Gray Armstrong of Obsidian Tea, and we have Ivy Gray of kind of like universal fame, coming in to talk about racism in dance communities. And so I really hope that you will join us for that conversation. In other terms of wormhole topics, and I don't want to put her on the spot, but one of our future conversationalists is also here in the room. And I haven't announced it yet, but you've all been such wonderful people that maybe I'll surprise you that Rebecca RG is going to be one of a pair of folks talking about disability and accommodation and physical need. Rebecca, do you want to give a 1 second kind of hello and just introduce yourself maybe?
Sure. Hi, I'm Rebecca. I've been both social dancing and solo/concert dancing for a long time, and I picked up a couple of disabilities along the way. You will often see me at events with a cane. You'll hear more about how that interacts with Dance Begins if you come to the panel. And Jay is the other person who is also fantastic.
Yeah, really looking forward. July talks will be announced soon because I'm just sitting on them, getting more and more excited. But so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop recording. I'm going to invite us to, if you want to kind of stay and breathe out and defragment for a moment, you're more than welcome. But first, let's just once more thank Ruby and Sydney for all their time and generosity in talking to us today.
Thank you.